XJ Talk Show.
It's on.
Now. Well, good evening. It's Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Central Time, and that means it's time for another xjtalk.com show. Full name being Jeep Cherokee XJ.talk.com. Kind of want to make it clear that we're here to talk about Jeep Cherokees. Just the Cherokee, better known as XJ. That's why the website name is XJ Talk, as we talk about them. Tonight we're going to be talking about a couple of, I think important things. Gas mileage on your XJ, and the overall poor design of the cooling system, which I believe is going to be a repeat a bit from a previous show. But summertime is upon us. So I think maybe some of the issues that I have found and gone through on my personal Jeep XJ might be of benefit to you. So we'll get right to that after we finish up playing this music.
This segment sponsored by fourwheelingplus.com. Do you own a Jeep? Do you need help getting it up? Check out fourwheelingplus.com for great deals on Jeep lift kits. That's the number 4, Wheeling Plus, PLUS.com.
And I want to remind you guys that we love getting calls on our voicemail or our feedback line. So, give us a call, leave your comment, leave a message. We'll probably play it on the air. Here's that number.
Do you have questions or comments that you would like played on the air? We've set up voicemail just for that purpose. All you have to do is call 530-675-4102. Just leave your name, your location, and your question or comment. Chances are good it'll get played on the air. That number again is 530-675-4102. We look forward to hearing from you today.
Also, too, if you got something to talk about, it doesn't necessarily have to be about Jeeps. Jeep-related is good. You don't want a Jeep talk show. But we're interested in other things. It may be something that indirectly pertains to Jeeps. It may be a better oil product that you've had direct experience with, and maybe it's not even with a Jeep Cherokee. The TJ Wranglers have a very common heritage with the XJs, at least the ones that were made during the same time period, and have the 4.0 liter engine. So you may have some experiences with engines or drivetrains or the other parts of the drivetrain that might benefit all of us. So, feel free to get in contact with me via the XJ Talk website and be a guest. So, as I said in the opening, we're going to be talking about some of the issues that I've gone through with my XJ, and maybe in the hopes of helping you out a bit. I have recently updated the amount of mile per gallon measurements that I've been taking since, I believe it was July of 2009, 9, 10, 11, it might be 2008, 2009, because I'm coming right up on 3 years worth of MPG data. And I started recording that data primarily because gasoline prices were spiking pretty bad. And I had just put the lift kit, the 4.5 inch rough country lift kit on my Jeep. And I had put the larger tires, 32 by 11.5 inches by 15, and the alloy wheels, the 10 by 15 alloy wheels. And I was noticing what seemed to be a gas mileage problem. I had not noticed, and of course I understood that perhaps it wasn't so much that I was noticing the problem as I was noticing how much gas was costing. Because, if something is cheap enough, it's below your radar and you really don't pay that much attention to it. Well, I think the combination of the price rising and the gas mileage going down were two critical things that made me, care, frankly. So I started measuring that information, and if I had when you lift a vehicle, you understand pretty much going in, especially if you ever have done it in the past. You understand going in, you're not going to get as good a gas mileage simply because you're changing the aerodynamics of the vehicle, and I think more importantly, you're putting more surface area between your vehicle and the road in the form of a larger tire. And let me just answer this question before it comes up. Yes, the speedometer was corrected. If you don't know what I'm talking about, when you change the size, the diameter size of the tire from stock to a larger tire or wheel tire combination, that basically means that the tire is going to roll further to get back to the same point on the tire. So your speedometer will show slower than what you're actually going. So you actually have to correct that. Now, some vehicles, I think you can correct it through the computer, the onboard computer, the ECM, and some have a mechanical means, and there may be those, and the XJ may be included in this, that you can correct either through the ECM or by changing a gear. And the only way I know how to do it is by changing the gear. And I just went on the internet. You guys have heard of the internet, I'm sure, and looked up the size tire that I have, the gear ratio that I have in the front and rear differentials, and picked the number of tooth gear that I needed to get it back to the stock setting. So I spent about $25, I think, and I got the 32 or 35 or whatever tooth gear it was, and it literally takes about 7 minutes to take the one bolt holding the other one in, the bracket off, and put the new gear in and put it back into the transfer case and put the bolt back in and go on down the road. I really wanted that because I on the first vehicle that I lifted was a 1983 Chevrolet pickup, and there may have been something just as easy to correct that speedometer. If so, I wasn't aware of it. And I drove that truck for quite a while with the speedometer being off. And it's a bit of a scary feeling whenever you're driving around, and especially if there's any police, you're concerned about getting a speeding ticket, especially since I was in my mid to late 20s when I did that. So eventually, looking in a magazine, I found where there was a company that would basically add this little piece of it was a gear, for all intents and purposes, a reduction gear set, and that was back in the days of the mechanical speedometer. So you actually had a cable that would come up from the transmission or transfer case all the way to the back of the speedometer in your dash. And that cable would turn, and the speedometer needle would turn and measure your speed. So basically, I got this little reduction gear thing, or I would assume it was reduction. Maybe not. Maybe it was an increase. But it basically, through the use of a couple of gears, it corrected it. And you actually would have to go out and measure timed over a measure. Measure time over a fixed distance. And the further the distance, the further the measured distance, the more accurate it was. So anyway, it's a lot easier. It was a lot easier to do on the Jeep, and it's just a gear, and the gear is available on, many companies online carry those gears. And actually, I got mine from the dealership, local Jeep dealership, and it was about the same price online or just going down to the dealership. So I just did that. So anyway, I did correct the speedometer. So one of the things that I found out, I was on naxja.org website asking questions and trying to gather help from some of the members and visitors there. Tell them that hey, my gas mileage sucks, and they're basically saying welcome to the club. And I said, yeah, I understand. But there was interestingly several other people, and of course it's the internet, nobody ever lies. But there was several other people that were saying that hey, I've got 32-inch tires, or I've got 33-inch tires, and blah blah blah, and this bumper and this spare tire, and et cetera, and I get 600 miles of the gallon. And there was enough of them that were saying, and of course I'm being facetious, they were seeing 16 to 18 miles per gallon with this heavy equipment added to their vehicles with speedometers corrected. So highway mileage, of course. And I thought to myself, well, the vehicle is supposed to be rated for 20 miles per gallon highway, and I think we all know that those estimates are never met. I guess in some rare tailwind, jet stream, tornadic activity near your Jeep during the measuring of gas mileage, you might get that, but who knows? But there are people that do get over 20 miles per gallon. Generally speaking, they have standard transmissions, and of course, the nice thing about the standard transmission is you control how much RPM. How much power that you put to the transmission, and more importantly, I believe, how much slippage occurs, because there's a lot of slipping going on inside an automatic transmission, and I think they do that partially to make the ride easier, to make it feel smoother, because we all know that the Jeep Cherokees are luxury vehicles. But anyway, you do have more control over how much slippage goes on between the engine and getting the power to the rear wheels. So I started measuring the MPG for my Jeep, and I was getting around 10 miles to the gallon. And I thought that was really, really bad. There was a lot of different things thrown out there from NAXJ members about O2 sensors being bad. You need to change the differential gears because it's taking more power to get the Jeep going. What was another thing that I remember. And over those last 3 years, I've tried a number of things. I've replaced the fuel injectors from the stock one-hold injector to a Ford Mustang. I think it was a 2009 Ford Mustang injector with there was like 6 or 7 holes in that injector. So the idea, they're giving you a better spray pattern to mix the air and the fuel, and if you get a better pattern, a more diffuse pattern, then you should get a better burn. And I thought, hey, maybe the injectors are giving me a problem. Anyway, I can get a little ahead of myself. The first thing that I tried were the O2 sensors. And I replaced the 2 O2 sensors with Bosch, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly or not, Bosch O2 sensors, and they were about $70 a piece. On the 1998 Jeep Cherokee, like I have, it is there's only 2 O2 sensors. One is up close to the exhaust manifold, and one is further away, closer to the catalytic converter. And my understanding is that the one closest to the exhaust manifold is the one that is basically telling the computer or giving the computer the information it needs to adjust the air-fuel mixture. And of course, that's critically important, not only in the running of your Jeep, but the efficiency of running of the Jeep, running of the engine. And then the downstream, the one closest to the exhaust sensor would be upstream. The one closer to the catalytic converter would be the downstream O2 sensor. And my understanding is that the downstream O2 sensor measures how well the mixture is being burned. Basically, I think how well the catalytic converter is taking care of it. I believe that's right. I believe that's on the back end of the catalytic converter. In other words, it's measuring the mixture after the catalytic converter has done its job, trying to scrub up the hydrocarbons out of there. At any rate, the front one I was more concerned with, and it made no difference. Nothing that I could tell, and I am able to tell. I have heard this before, and I've seen this directly. You have to collect a lot of data to be able to see what's going on for your miles per gallon, what your gas mileage is, because it can vary pretty widely over time. And over a short period of time. And I cannot relate that in 3 years of data. I cannot relate that to the way I was driving. I don't know why. It goes. I've seen it as low as 11 and a half. I guess I've seen it down as close to 10, almost 11 miles per gallon. And I've seen it as high as, what was it? 13.6, 13.7 miles per gallon. And I mean, we're talking from week to week. And actually you get a nice sawtooth pattern on the graph. It goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down. And you might get a period in there where 2 or 3 weeks will be fairly the same. Within half, less than a mile per gallon. But it varies widely, and it's really strange. I don't understand that, especially after the ECM has learned your driving habits. The other thing I didn't understand very much was I can drive like the hypermilers drive, and of course I'm exaggerating. A hypermiler is basically like they're usually people driving Hondas, and they plan their courses from wherever they're going, work, whatever, where they don't have to stop as much, where they don't have to go very fast, and they can accelerate gradually over a long distance. So they have to plan the most optimum route. They have to plan a route where they, at least here in Texas, don't get shot for driving so slow or accelerating so slow. But even trying to drive very carefully and slow to accelerate and so on and so forth, I was not seeing a change in gas mileage. Now, it may have shown up if I had done that over a long period of time, but I probably would have killed myself. I probably would have just gone insane and killed myself trying to drive that carefully over a long period of time. I mean, that's one of the fun things about driving the Jeep anyway is taking off and going. Driving altogether, I guess, it's just fun to accelerate, take the corners sharp, etc., even in a Jeep. So anyway, it basically, I know that it takes more gas to move takes more gas to move the Jeep faster, but it just seems like idle or 70 miles an hour, it's using about the same amount of gas. So it's your choice. You can, you can be going slow or you can be going fast or faster. At any rate, the next thing I tried that I recall is replacing the differential gears. The stock differential gears are 3.55. And again, going through NAXJ.org, the members and guests there were suggesting, and doing my own research, they were suggesting 410 or 450, 4.10 or 4.56 gears for the differentials. So basically what that means is that it's going to allow the engine to turn the front and rear axles faster. They will turn more revolutions than what the differential gears that were there, what they would turn the wheels. So you have various ways that you can adjust how much the wheels turn. certainly if you increase the tire size, that means the tire is not going to turn as many revolutions over a distance. So by changing out the differential gears to a higher numeric gear or a lower gear ratio, now you're going to be the tire is actually going. The tire is still going to go over the same distance, but the engine is going to turn more times for that same amount of wheel rotation. Basically, what it does is it means that it's going to be easier for the engine to get the mass of the Jeep moving forward or even reverse. It's going to be easier for the engine to get it going because there's going to be less resistance. Let's see, is resistance, would that be correct? I guess to a degree that's true, because it would be like using a lever, and you can use a short lever to move something, and you have to use more force to get that moving, or you can use a much longer lever, and then it doesn't require as much force. So I believe that's a good analogy. May not be, but anyway, that's what you got. So replace the, I went with 410 was what I was considering, and there was so many people that said, it's a lot of effort, it's a lot of expense to change out the gears. And actually, if you have to ask, I was told this, if you have to ask, should I change the differential gears myself, you shouldn't. You shouldn't change them yourself. So I actually had a mechanic change out my differentials, and I had to make a big decision, since it was going to be rather expensive, not only for the pinion and the ring of the gear and the associated rebuild kits, but also to the charge that the mechanic was going to charge me. So several people said you should go one gear set higher or lower, depending on if you're looking at the gear number or the ratio. You should go one more than what you want to go, because you'll be happier in the long run. So I went back and forth thinking about it, and I just went ahead and decided I would go with the 456 gears. And I want to tell you, it's great. And also too, I had always planned on a larger diameter tire, and I knew that as the tire size goes up, you need numerically higher gears to get the same results. So I think maybe I was toying around with the idea of going with some 35-inch tires at that time, and 35-inch tires with the 456 gears would be really close to stock gearing. It would be very close as to how many RPMs the engine would turn, and how much force it would have to give to put out to push the Jeep along. Now, of course, that varies because of the weight of the tires and other things I've added to the Jeep, items that have changed the airflow and also added additional weight. So, I'm sorry, I was just looking here at the chat room, and Weldman says, Tony, what's your RPM at 60 miles per hour? I don't have it in front of me, but I believe it would be 2,500 RPM. I know for a fact that at 80 miles an hour, it's 3,000, and it's I believe at 70, it is 2,800. So, yeah, it's pretty high, and just like they told me on that NAXJ website, the 4.0 can turn 3,000 RPM all day long, and it surely can. It has no problem doing that whatsoever. Although I did get heat creep, which was the cooling system gradually heating up, and I believe it's because of that additional RPM that the engine is turning. And I'm sure it has to do with airflow and additional weight and so on and so forth, and aerodynamics. So anyway, I changed out the 355 gears with 456 gears, and continued to measure my fuel consumption versus mileage gained over that fuel usage from week to week. And I say week to week, it's whenever I filled up, and generally speaking, I can go a week to whatever job I'm working at on a tank of gas. And I have the 20-gallon tank on the Jeep Cherokee. and that effectively is about I think 18.6 gallons is the most I've ever been able to get in a tank, and that's with the power dropping off. In other words, the injectors weren't putting out as much fuel as what they needed to be because the tank was almost empty. So I read something about that. I think it's you have to measure up the tube, and it doesn't pick up all the fuel that's in there, and so on and so forth. I don't know. They may even have it set that way because they don't want the fuel pump to the fuel pump's in the tank. So I think they do that. They may do that because they don't want the fuel pump to not be in some fuel, because they actually use the fuel to cool the fuel pump. And I think I also read someplace you're not supposed to run a tank more than 3/4 empty, that you needed to have at least a quarter tank of fuel in there. Otherwise you could overheat the fuel pump. But I've been doing it for the longest time. I mean, I've had this Jeep since 98, and it's still going. Of course, the fuel pump could also be the culprit in a mile per gallon issue. But anyway, I went with the 456 gears, continued to measure the gas mileage, and I noticed a significant jump almost immediately. And it went, looking at the graph over just that very short period of time, from around July to the end of the year, my miles per gallon increased by around 2 miles to 2.5 miles per gallon. Now, that may not seem like that big a deal, but if you're getting around 10, and now you're getting up close to 13 miles per gallon, that makes you feel good that the $1,500 that you spent to have this done, buy the gears and have them installed, not to mention the time that I spent there at the mechanic's place watching and helping, it makes you feel good that you got a little bang for your buck. Now, I haven't gone through the how much fuel could I have bought and how much fuel did I save, and I probably don't want to know. So, and that's really it. I mean, that's it. That's the only thing that I have seen a change in 3 years of collecting mile per gallon data that made any significant improvement. Now, what I will add is, over that same time period, I've added a bumper that a front winch bumper that probably weighs 90 to 100 pounds. I've added a super winch, a 9,000 pound rated pulling super winch that I know is 70 or 80 pounds. On top of that, I've added, and I think I just throw this in because at least from the wind resistance, I've added 4 KC daylighter 6-inch daylighter off-road lights to that bumper, which weighs a little bit. A couple of D-rings on that bumper, so I got all that weight. And even prior to that custom front bumper that I have on there, I added a custom rear bumper, and it probably weighs, it's got to weigh, it probably weighs more than what the front bumper does. Since it probably weighs about the same, actually, because the bumper itself probably weighs 90 or so pounds. There's an additional tire carrier added to that bumper so that I can put a spare tire. And then again, and then also there's the spare tire, which is probably 40, 50 pounds, maybe more. So all told, we're probably talking about 300 pounds of weight added to the Jeep, just in bumpers, winch, and spare tire. And I guess really that's about it for the weight adding, because it already had skid plates at various places. I did take the front skid plate off, which I'm going to put back on just to see if I can help the heat creep problem, but to promote airflow through the radiator instead of maybe under the Jeep. But anyway, so that's one thing that I found very interesting. You hear a lot on the forums that adding this additional weight to your Jeep is going to really hurt your gas mileage. At least in my case, not true. Absolutely not true. Now, it is always possible that the various things that I've been trying to improve my gas mileage have been are not visible over a very short period of time in the measurement of my gas mileage, and those improvements actually are offsetting the negative things that I've done to the Jeep as far as gas mileage goes. And those negative things would be the addition of all that weight and the change in airflow around the general brick shape of the of the Jeep. So I don't know. All I can tell you is that I have not seen a difference in gas mileage. I am still getting most of the time it's around 12.7, 12.8 to 13.2, 13.3, with opportunities to go to 13.6, and I do a little dance and a little smiley face as I'm accelerating wildly going to work. I usually fill up get gas on the way to work. So and actually that's what I've read, that's the best time to get fuel is in the morning, because the fuel is cooler, the atoms are closer packed together, and you get more fuel in your vehicle than you do if it's hot. Actually, in the early morning hours after the fuel has had time to cool down is probably the best time. If you have a refrigeration unit that you can put over the top of the storage tanks, that would help you even more. So anyway, that's kind of my bottom line. I have not improved my fuel economy by better driving. I have not improved it by really any means that I can see. No, the data does not bear out that. And I also installed a Performance Distributor Firewire 4.0 kit in the hopes that it would give me a better spark and give me better combustion of the air fuel mixture, and basically, give me more bang for the fuel buck. And that did not occur. That did not occur on my vehicle. Now, we recently gave away a Performance Distributor Firewire kit, about a $200 value, $170 at least, to a xjtalk.com member and show listener. He's in the chat room tonight, Weldman. I like to call him Weldman. And he recently installed it on his Jeep. Kurt, what year is... he says grr, he doesn't like Weldman. What year is your Jeep, Kurt? I think I'm saying your name wrong. Weldman's Jeep is a 1995, so it's 3 years older than my Jeep, and he was able to install his Firewire kit and gap his plugs 0.054. That, if I recall his post correctly. And he says he has received a increase in throttle response, and I think he's very hopeful. Kurt is also getting pretty bad gas mileage. I think he's getting around 140 miles per tank of gas. And Kurt, is that a 20 gallon tank, or is it the what's the other one that they have, a 15 gallon, I think? So it's a 20 gallon. Okay. See, I'm getting around anywhere from 215 to 230 miles out of a tank of gas on my vehicle. So that's almost 100 miles to a tank more than what you're getting. Now, I've pretty much always been getting that, though, and that didn't change with the Firewire kit. Now, I didn't gap my spark plugs. I think, well, you read the article that I wrote up on that most recently, Kurt. I guess I had forgotten. I think that it is... Kurt says he's at 142 as of today. How much gas do you have left? I mean, what does it say on the fuel meter? Just waiting for him to type in his response. Oh, wow. Well, actually, Kurt Weldman responded with just over half a tank. So, did you fill up right after you put the Firewire kit on, or had you already used some gas? He said no on Sunday. So, I guess I don't understand. You filled up on Sunday and then you installed the kit, or you installed the kit and then filled up on Sunday? I can't remember. Did you put the kit in on Saturday? Oh, you installed it yesterday. Okay, so and the other thing I had posted up, did you reset the ECM? Because you need to reset your ECM so it can relearn everything. Yeah, because and I think that was a correct statement that I made in that post. I mean, you made a significant change to the ignition system. And those of you that aren't familiar, the Performance Distributor Kit is a higher voltage coil, and this isn't unusual. They've been doing stuff like this. People have been coming up with higher voltage coils and plug wires that are faster to move that energy from the coil to the plug, and hotter burning plugs, and et cetera, et cetera. That stuff's been going on for years. It's not some new pseudoscience thing. It does work. They use it in racing. So anyway, the Performance Distributor Kit basically is a higher voltage coil, some high temperature plug wires. The plug wires are really nice, and it allows you to run a greater spark and a bigger gap on your spark plug. And again, giving a larger spark hopefully to ignite the air fuel mixture more completely, giving you more oomph for the buck. So Kurt has installed a kit on his Jeep, and I know he's hopeful, and I certainly am too, that he's going to see a mile per gallon in performance. He says he already feels a seat of the pants change, more power. Kurt, you have the 355 gears? Kurt just says huge. It's a huge change. You have 355 gears in your axles, right? And what size tires? Well, I love that complete silence when I stop talking. So he's got 30-inch tires. So he's all about, if I remember right, that's about 3 inches or an inch and a half on either side of the tire, bigger than a stock tire, because I think the stock tires are 27 inch. Yeah, 2.5. Okay, so, well, that's good. It's amazing. It's just amazing that you are getting that bad of gas mileage on 30-inch tires. Man. Anyway, I don't want to go. I have a bunch of questions I'd like to ask you, and probably redundant questions that you've been asked, like changing O2 sensors and so on and so forth. I firmly believe that a bad O2 sensor could give you bad gas mileage. I mean, if it's not giving the most accurate data to the ECM, the ECM is not going to be able to determine what the proper air fuel mixture is going to be, and so on and so forth. Yeah, that's the other thing. That was my question, Weldman. Weldman says no codes, ? And that was what I always thought. If it's not throwing a code, if the check engine light's not coming on your dash, then the O2 sensor must be okay. And they said not so. That the O2 sensor can be giving erroneous information, but it's still within the acceptable limits for the computer to say, okay, I'll deal with that. And I don't know if that means that it has the ability to adjust well enough to not to significantly impact the mile per gallon that you get, or if it just means it doesn't matter. It could be that it just doesn't matter. It's just not that critical. And it could be the latter, and that might be why when I changed the O2 sensors, and I've changed the O2 sensors several times, that's why it didn't make a difference. Now, I will add, looking at the data, over the last, in 2010, I did see on average, a decline in my miles per gallon by maybe 0.2 of a mile per gallon. It probably is closer to 1/10. And like I said earlier, I think that you have to measure this over a long period of time to really get a sense of what your fuel mileage is, because it varies drastically. One of the things that I have noticed, though, is if you look at how many miles you are able to go on a tank of gas, that seems to be, and it's probably the difference in the decimal point numbers as opposed to the mile numbers, but it just not really thinking about it, I guess. That always screws things up when you think about it. I've noticed that the number of miles on a tank of gas is pretty much always the same. I know it's going to be 200 miles at least. And it probably is going to be 230 if I really want to push it. I mean, I've seen it 235. And I guess I just get a little nervous. And when I get to around 210, 212, it shows empty. And, I don't carry a fuel can on my Jeep. So if it stops running, then I'm walking or I'm trying to coast into a gasoline station. So there's just so much that there's so much you want to chance it. So anyway, bottom line is over 3 years, or almost 3 years, here in 2 months, it'll be 3 years of collecting mile per gallon data. I have seen no significant change in my miles per gallon, either to the positive or to the negative, with the exception of changing the front and rear differential gears, going from 355 stock to 456 not stock. I would be very interested in knowing what it would be like to be on 410 gears. Now, what I'm going to be doing here in the next few months, maybe just a month or so, it just depends, is changing the tires. I'm going to be going from the 32 11.5 by 15 to the new KM2. I have the KM1s mud terrains on my vehicle now, which I'm sure doesn't help the gas mileage because of those big lugs. But I'm going to be going to the KM2 because they don't make KM1s anymore. Otherwise, I'd just be getting another set of those. But I'm going to be going to the 33 by 12.5 by 15 tires. Now, the KM2, at least in my layman's opinion, is not, even though they're mud terrain, they are not as aggressive as the KMs. The lugs are closer together, and they look to me to be more of a all-terrain tire. Now, they do still have all-terrain BFG all-terrain tires, and they're not as aggressive as this tread pattern. So I've heard that the KM2s are quieter. I've heard that the KM2s, I've heard they work well. So, maybe I'm hoping it's just computers able to get the same response from a better tread pattern. And I suspect that it may balance out since I'm going wider, an inch wider on the tire, it's going to be more contact between my vehicle and the road, which is going to mean more friction, which should mean a drop in, logic says that it should be a drop in miles per gallon. And I will be changing out the gear in the speedometer gear in the transfer case so that it will measure the distance and therefore the speed correctly. And so my mile per gallon should still be accurate. And I'm not going to drive it without changing out that gear. I'll get the gear before I get the tires, and I'll have it ready, and I'll swap it out, or I'll do it shortly thereafter. So it would be a very small statistical bump on the mile per gallon radar, even if I changed it out a day or so later. So I will be sure and correct that. But it's very interesting to see that nothing has made a change, and I'm also interested to see if it's going to make any real change with the larger tire. Now, I was thinking about going to a 35-inch tire, and for two reasons. I like to me, the bigger the tire, the better it looks. And also, two, with the 35-inch tire, I would be closer to the right ratio with the 456 gears. I'd be very, very close to stock gearing. In other words, I would be very close to the same gearing I was having with the stock tire and the 355 gears in the axles. The problem with putting the 35-inch tires on these axles, the Dana 30 up front and the Crosshair 8.25 in back, is it puts a lot of stress, a lot of torque on those axles and on all the parts. It also puts more stress on the steering box and even how it mounts to the unibody. So there's a lot of things that you really need to do to beef up your Jeep to run 35s or 36s or 37s or whatever. But people have found they can pretty well get away with running 33-inch tires morning, noon, and night and the engineering of the Jeep Cherokee is sufficient enough to do that. Now, that's substantial. I mean, I think that's a good 4. What is that? 3, 4, 5. That's 5 inches wider, or taller, I should say, diameter tires than the stock tires. So, that's giving you another 2.5 inches of ground clearance, basically. So that's significant. It really is 33 inches really is a big tire. And I wouldn't think that just a half inch bigger on either side of the 32 that I have would make physically look like that big of a difference. But I went off road with a XJ Talk member and friend about a year or so ago, and he had just gotten a set of KM2 33-inch tires, and when I saw them, I thought they were 35s. They were just huge, and they just looked so much bigger than mine, and they were just an inch taller and an inch wider. So I would like to see what it would do, and who knows, I might be able to run across somebody on the site that has some 35-inch tires that I can just swap out and drive them for a week and see what it would be like from the standpoint of gas mileage and that heat creep problem that I was talking about. So I don't know. I've talked a lot about the mile per gallon, a lot more than what I thought I was going to, and actually I thought we were going to have a short show today, but I guess I got on a rant. Let's see, jump back over here to the chat room and catch up. So let's see, I think Weldman was asking me a question. Tony, do you have a 6-inch on that red thing? I would assume that you're referring to the lift. It's a 4.5-inch lift. So, yeah, 27-inch tire, I think, is the stock size. I'm just seeing VW Fool says they are, let's see, beefy as hell, though. They are ran with 456 and 33s. You get the same MPG. I'm trying to read here. VW, what do you mean? The same MPG as what? The 456s with the 33s, you get the same mile per gallon as running what? Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting. He says versus 355 gears and 235. I think that's a metric measurement of the tire. Oh, with Dana 60s as stock axles. Yeah, the Dana 60s, and I guess I'm going against the thing I've already said. The Dana 60s are really heavy. And boy, just by their nature, you have to put a bigger tire on them, because if you run Dana 60s with small tires, you're defeating the whole purpose of lifting the vehicle to start with, because you want to get that pumpkin, that differential, higher off the ground. And the Dana 60s are just huge pumpkins, and they're going to be close to the ground. So I think you need a 35-inch tire minimum on a Dana 60. Of course, that's the nice thing about the Dana 60. I think you can run pretty much anything up to a monster truck tire. It's going to take it. 54-inch tires, I don't think are a problem for Dana 60s, and that would just be incredible. It would be a lot of fun to have a vehicle with a big lift and big tires and some badass axles. It's certainly not going to be a trail vehicle or a climbing vehicle like what the Jeep Cherokee is. So I don't know if you guys, I think many of you realize that, maybe some that aren't into the off-road thing, you just see the lifted vehicles on the street. When you see a truck that's lifted a good 2 foot in the air and has these massive tires on them, it is very impressive, very cool to look. But for all intents and purposes, those are road warriors. You aren't going to see those off-road, and if you do see them off-road, it's going to be mud. And even at that, when the vehicles are really heavy, like the big the Ford 350s and stuff, they get so heavy that it's not a good idea to run them through the mud, because they're going to get stuck no matter what size tire you have on there. And now you've got a nice $70,000-$80,000 vehicle stuck in the mud, and it's so damn heavy, and with the addition of the friction of the mud, you got something that you can't put enough stuff on it to pull it out. So there really are just road warriors, and they're a lot of fun. If I get an opportunity to get another four-wheel drive pickup, I will, but it is different from the Jeep. The Jeep is a very fun vehicle to take off-road, to drive on the street, off the street, and it's kind of like having a goat that doesn't eat the cans. It will pretty much go anywhere, any little spot you want to go. And of course, I've been looking at these Suzuki Samurais. Talk about small and going places. There, you're talking about something that's maybe half the size of a Jeep, one of the Wranglers. Wow, those things are pretty amazing. I can see how that would be a lot of fun to drive those things around. You get you get a good lift out of it, and get some good sized tires. Plus, they're very short and narrow, and they seem to be able to go lots of places as well. So, yep, I'm not going to be able to get to the Jeep cooling. Suffice it to say, I've changed everything on my cooling system, with the exception of the heater core, which isn't directly the cooling system, but the coolant does pass through it. So I've changed all that and upgraded all of it. Yeah, well, the hoses are still made of rubber, and they're still basic hoses. They have been changed. I won't call that an upgrade, but I have modified the rest of it, and it does cool much better. But as I was saying earlier in the program, I do have this issue with heat creep. Going down the highway, the cooling system is not capable of keeping up with the amount of heat that's being generated by the engine. And traditionally that means that the you're not getting enough airflow through the radiator, and certainly the custom front bumper, winch, and off-road lights would seem to be the culprit for that. However, and I'm not saying they're not keeping the airflow from going through. I'm sure they are, but I was having this issue before I changed out that bumper. But I can drive off-road, crawl, a lot of torque, a lot of horsepower usage, off-road, very low speeds, and running the air conditioner, which seems kind of counterintuitive. But, I'm a fat boy. I don't want to be out there sweating, making my own gravy. So driving around off-road, air conditioner blaring 9,500 degrees air temps, and had no problems with it overheating. So all the modifications that I've made definitely helped, but I still got to fix this heat creep issue so that I can actually drive it on the highway. And of course, that was one of the reasons why I was looking at doing the 35-inch tires to see if it was an RPM related issue. Get the RPMs back down to 2,200 at 70 miles per hour, and I think that's right. I think 2,200 RPM and 2,300 is about what it was whenever it was stock. It's another one of those things. Before you start making changes, make notes of things, because then you wind up having to go back and ask people what their stock vehicle does. I dearly wish I had done a good gas mileage measurement on my stock Jeep, especially when I first got it. It just, the fuel was $1 something a gallon back then, and it just really didn't matter. So Weldman's screaming at me here in the chat room. He says, Tony Reed, let's see. Weldman says that, I don't know how far back I'm supposed to go, Kurt, but Weldman says, Tony, my temps went down with the Firewire kit, and 37 exclamation marks after that. And yeah, I didn't see that. I didn't see that occur. Let's see. Always owned Ford trucks and Jeeps and VW water-cooled cars. Mustangs as well. Okay. VW Fool says, I can't get my temps over 160. Not that good. Need to change up my T-stat to a 180 or 190. Yeah, everything I've read as far as miles per gallon, you want to go with the 100. I think the 190 is the stock. At least on the 98s, the HO engines, the 190 degree thermostat is the stock, and you do want to. And I learned the hard way. A thermostat will not lower your temps. It'll just keep the coolant temperature cooler longer. Once the temperature rises, the thermostat's open, and it doesn't matter. It's going to run at whatever it's going to run at. So. It just means it'll open sooner and it will stay cooler longer. But if you're going any place over any distance, it's going to rise to whatever the value is, whatever the balance between how much heat the engine's creating and how much you're able to cool that coolant as it moves through the radiator and the water jackets and so on and so forth. So I understand it now. Thermostat just delays the inevitable, I should say. And I certainly saw that because I tried it. I put a 180-degree thermostat on mine, and it basically served to help me freeze my ass off during our winters. And remember, our winters aren't very, very bad here. I mean, we're talking about some 38-degree days, 40-degree days, and man, it was cold in the Jeep. It was really cold in the Jeep. I know, I'm a big baby. I don't know what cold is, but I do like the cold. It's very pleasurable not breaking a sweat getting out of the Jeep and walking into the house. But it gets a little tiresome whenever you're driving an hour to or from work to not have the heat in the Jeep. I kind of learned that 190, I keep wanting to say 195, but I believe it's 190-degree thermostat. That one made a big difference as far as keeping the Jeep nice and warm. And even at that, with all the modifications I made to the cooling system, it takes a little while longer to heat up and get some nice temps out of the heater. So guys, I did a whole hour tonight. I was thinking I would be doing this for about 30 minutes, but I appreciate the people that showed up in the chat room and the interaction. It's always fun. I enjoy the show personally a lot more whenever we have some folks in the chat room. So thank you very much. And Kurt, my apologies for not getting that Firewire kit to you sooner, but you got it, and you are having fun with it. And all it cost you was a little time to record some promos and a little bit of bitching and complaining about where the hell is it. So, and that reminds me, if you would like to call in and leave a promo for the show, hell, that'd be great. In fact, I'll play one here at the end of the music, and you can kind of see what I'm talking about. But just call our feedback line and throw in a question. Maybe you've got something that you'd like to add to the mile per gallon thing that I talked about tonight. Maybe you've seen something different than me. Call in, let me know. I'll share it with the audience. I'll share it with myself. I'd like to know. And of course, you can always post on xjtalk.com, one of the Jeep premier websites on the internet, that thing that Al Gore invented. So anyway, the number is 530-675-4102. 530-675-4102. It's only voicemail. Don't have to worry about anybody answering. Call any time of the day or night. And, promo, question, feedback, whatever you like. So until next week, this is Tony, Motorola and xjtalk.com, wishing you very happy Jeep days.
xjtalk.com.
xjtalk.com.
It's where you go when you're not off-road.
Okay, here's a good promo.
Hey, I just wanted to tell you about xjtalk.com. It's a great site. There's no bashing. Everybody's nice and friendly. Great place to be.
And, of course, my favorite.
I just wanted to say XJ Talk is the best site in the world. And if you think you know of a better site, you. By the way, this is Big Jim 350. Bye.
And here's one of this is one of the promos that won Weldman that performance distributor kit.
Hello, this is Kurt, aka Weldman from Wisconsin. If you're looking to get some great information or share what you know about your XJ, and you need to see some pictures of other XJs to get some great ideas or how-tos, this is the place. We come from all over the world, so you might even make a few great friends. You won't find a better group of people to chat with, and best of all, we don't judge you for your ride, so stock or super modified, you are always welcome here. So look no further, xjtalk.com, the place you need to be. So sign up, sign in, and have some fun.